I hope someone finds this.
The event wasn't just one thing. It was a slow creep.
Every film is for a reason, you said once, and I'm curious about the beginning of the filmmaking process. How you choose your characters? Is it a mission to find a hero to fight for?
Interesting, good question. I mean, when I start a film, I'm not always aware of why, but it's like a gut feeling. It's like an instinct. And normally, the process is like a process of elimination. A project may come along or an idea, and you go, no, 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 maybe. And something just makes you say maybe. And then it's only during the creation of it that I understand what is it about that person that made me interested in telling the story, because they take a long time. My film, I take a long time. Sometimes they're 3 years, sometimes they're 5 years of my life. So film and the subject becomes like a part of your life and a part of your family, and for me, quite like an obsession. So you might as well make a film about something you care about. You should do films about things you care about, or that which are personal. Even if the person may not seem like you, the process makes it very personal. Now, normally what happens is when I finish one film, the next film is often the opposite of the one before. And it's only like in hindsight, people can say, oh, there's a link between these films. But at the time, I keep, in my mind, I'm doing something completely different. But then the process and the style that I make films becomes similar.
Let's back to Amy. Heartbreaking documentary about Amy Winehouse present a complex picture of someone who is both more canny and more intimidated. Do you have the fear of not having the answer about the truth about the person?
In that film, that was the challenge. Amy's friends kept saying to me, yeah, but are you going to show the real Amy? Are you going to show the real Amy? And then I would say, I never met Amy. So unless you tell me, I don't know who the real Amy is. And in my job as a filmmaker, I will show the audience. I've got to turn it into a movie. And it's one of the reasons why, and I like making movies, is I spend a long time to try to find the essence of a person. When I was younger, I worked in TV, and it was very quick, very, very fast. You have to make something, shoot something quick, edit it fast, and it goes out on television. It was not real, it was not true, it was not honest, it was rushed. And cinema is the opposite for me. I take as long as possible in order to find truth. Filmmaking is all about cheating. It's all about editing and construction. But when you put it together and you pull out, then you have a real, I hope, the essence of a real person, or my interpretation of that person. 50 different directors would make a different film about Amy. So this is my version of Amy Winehouse's story, my version of Diego Maradona, my version of Ayrton Senna. That's where it becomes personal. It's like, what is it that interests you? Those are the things that I bring out in the story.
But what about the emotions, your emotions about the person?
I mean, that becomes a part of the process. When I start the film, I don't know anything about this person. If you're lucky, as you're making a film, like with Senna, you know, I kind of fell in love with him. I thought he was amazing. I thought he was a brilliant human being. I wanted the world to understand him and to be on his side. Same with Amy. I thought she was incredible. I didn't know she was such a brilliant musician. I didn't know she was so funny. I didn't know she had that kind of wit and intelligence. I didn't know that she wrote the music and the lyrics and played the guitar. So that, for me, is my kind of journey. As I'm making a film, I'm learning. And then I always think, well, I'm the first audience member. I'm hoping if it's interesting to me and I learn, and slowly, bit by bit, I fall in love with a character, I'm hoping that's what's going to happen to the audience. And then when I feel angry, the audience will feel angry. And when I cry and I'm emotional about something awful that happens to them, because I want you to care about this character, the audience feel the same way. So I never really try to make a film where I know everything at the beginning. I'm going on a journey making the film, and that journey is then replicated by the audience when they see it.
Maradona é realmente um grande jogador, mas não está com sua formação ainda psíquica preparada.
I like your point of view on your films, because I read that you said about Diego Maradona that it's a gangster film.
Yeah.
So you connect the genres of your movie with the themes of the movie. It's really interesting for me.
I kind of think, you know, because my background is in fiction. The first film that I ever showed in Poland was called The Warrior, and it was a Western. But I made it in India, so it was like my version of a Western. And yeah, Senna for me is like an all-out action movie. He's an action hero. It's like the hero's journey with this kind of spiritual element to it. Amy's a musical. And the songs and her lyrics are all based on her life experience. So it's like a Bollywood film. It's like an Indian movie, right? It's a musical. And then, yeah, Diego Maradona is a footballer, obviously, but it's a gangster film. It's about this guy from the street. It's like Mean Streets, but he happens to be really good at football. And that's the same kind of principle that I always try to think about. What is the genre that this fits into? For me, I always want to break out of, oh, it's a documentary. It's like, what does that mean? You know, when you have a drama, you can have lots of genre. And then people have this silly idea that a documentary covers everything. I'm like, well, no, I don't think it does. I think you can have genre within the doc. And I like to play with that and experiment. And because it makes it more interesting for me as a filmmaker, but also, like, the new film is a sci-fi. It's a horror film, whatever you want to call it. It's a documentary set in the future. It hasn't even happened yet. That's what I was thinking. The challenge is doing that kind of storytelling with footage that pre-exists, that I didn't shoot. So that's the difficult part. The difficult part is applying the kind of structure to something that I don't always have control over, but that's the fun part for me, and the difficult part. That's why they take so long.
I know that when you make Senna, you were thinking about Sunset Boulevard?
Well, the idea that can a person narrate their own life story if they're not alive? I don't want somebody else telling me his life story. I want him to tell me his life story, but he's dead. I would be in the cinema, it premiered at Sundance, and people were falling in love with him. They were like, this guy's amazing. Oh, he makes them laugh, he makes them cry. And I'm like, they have no idea where this is going. They don't know the final act. And I thought that's the key thing that I try to do. My films may be about people from the past, but I try to tell them in the present. What I don't like about classic documentary interviews is that you have someone talking about Ayrton Senna. He was a really great racing driver, and you cut to some footage. You go, I think that's bad filmmaking. I mean, that's clunky, bad filmmaking. I want you to feel it. So that's what I always try to do, is make the audience feel you're Amy's best friend. You're hanging out with her, and she speaks to you directly. A lot of the footage was filmed by her friends and with lots of people around her on cameras. So she constantly looks straight at the camera, which is the audience. She's directly communicating with you. So she flirts with you, and she sings to you, and she jokes with you, and then we become the paparazzi. We're the ones attacking her. We become the people who should be caring about her, who are now filming her to exploit her. And the audience become a part of the story. So that was just like a visual idea that I had as we were constructing the film, to make the audience quite active in her story from the beginning to the end.
We are worth more when we are addicted, polarized, and disinformed than if we are living, breathing, free citizens.
Your latest film, 2073, tells the story of biggest challenges of today's life facing humanity today: neo-fascism, climate disaster, new technology. What are the references of 2073?
The reference that I had was Chris Marker and a film called Les Jetés. You ever seen it? From the 60s, new wave film. And I thought, if he, with Les Jetés, could do time travel just in a short film with photographs, can I do the same thing with archive? Somehow create a structure where the archive is in the future, but obviously it's from now. And then I started looking at other films, and I thought, okay, can I break the rules where can I make a documentary that's like, Blade Runner? Can I make a documentary that's a bit like Children of Men? Can I make a documentary that uses the kind of all of the rules of sci-fi, and also is really shocking, but the action scenes, the most shocking stuff in 2073, the violent things, the climate issues, the tech issues, are all real. They're factual. So I wanted to turn on its head that you cut to a tornado coming and it destroys everything, and you can tell, well, it's not real, so it's a visual effect. In this case, the tornado is real. And I think that was the intention, the style of like sci-fi movies, but also to turn it into something new using archive as the action scene.
This film, 2073, is really different from the previous ones. How do you find yourself confronting issue in this bold and shocking mix of science fiction and non-fiction?
I made a documentary first, and we spent 2 years making that. And I knew it was really hard and heavy and difficult for people to watch. So I knew I needed something that was going to be like the spine that goes in between the documentary sequences. I knew from very early on that would be drama. I've always wanted to get really good actors. And because sometimes when people do it in documentaries, the drama scenes are not very well done, sometimes. And I was like, well, my background is making feature films, so I can do that. Can I cast like brilliant actors? So it's like a movie. People watch it in America, they're really confused. They think they're watching a feature film. And then they go, but this is all real, but it's a feature film. And is it fiction? Oh my God, this is literally what's happening, right? It's really interesting how the audience are confused, which I wanted them to feel. The future element which Samantha Morton is living in is an example of where we end up if we don't do anything now. We shot it very quickly, very fast, but even the drama is done like a sci-fi, like The Mandalorian. The set is using Unreal, which is like a games engine. So there's no physical set. The tunnel doesn't exist. It's all virtual. That's the fun part for me when I'm making a film, is I'm always trying to push the rules a little bit for me personally, as well as telling a story for the audience.
Do you feel that you are an independent artist? How do you feel freedom?
Yeah, I've always felt very independent. I feel like, in a way, I've always felt like I'm outside a little bit of everything because of my way of seeing the world, because of my background, because of where I'm from. I'm very lucky because I've been able to make lots of films. But my psychology, my feeling is always like very much independent. And I think in this moment, it's really important to be your own boss because no one can tell you what to do. Because we're in a very strange time politically where there's a lot of people trying to control artists or, films or books or whatever it might be. And you're like, well, the best thing you can be is your own boss. They may not like it. They may not give you money. They may not distribute your work. Fine. But they can't stop you from existing and thinking and believing in what you believe. I've worked for lots of people over the years, but I've always worked on a particular project and then I leave and I do my own thing.
For example, David Fincher with The Mindhunter.
I mean, that was like a dream. Okay, what a experience. Like one of my heroes, incredible director. I get a call from David Fincher and I meet him for breakfast in LA. And he says, I'm working on this show and I'd be interested in you directing it. I was like, okay. Amazing. I read the script, and I was worried because it's about serial killers, and I was like, it's not really my thing,
It's
right?
for me.
But then I read the script, and the script is just dialogue scenes, and I thought, oh, this is amazing. You don't see anything. It's all like in your imagination. And then when we spoke, I said, well, what's interesting is Amy, for me, was about me investigating a crime. A young woman died. I don't understand why nobody got in trouble. Nothing happened. She's 27 in London, and she dies. Where is everyone? Why is no one protecting her? And so my way of understanding that was by interviewing people just by doing audio. And then when you read the script of Mindhunter, it's two men who interview people on audio in order to understand crimes. So I said this to Fincher, and he was like, yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. When we're starting the job, and I'm in pre-production, so I said, look, David, why am I here? Like, why did you pick me? I don't understand. You could have picked any directors. Why did you come to me? He said, oh, it's a kind of interesting story. He said, one of my friends came to my house and said, you got to watch this movie. And the movie was Sennie. And their friend was Brad Pitt. So he watches it with his mate and goes, that's amazing. How did they do that? They couldn't figure out how it was made. And then a few years later, this other film comes out, and his other friend is Steven Soderbergh. And Steven Soderbergh goes, this film's great, you should see it. It's called Amy. So Brad Pitt and Steven Soderbergh had both seen Amy and Senna and recommended them to Fincher, and then Fincher was like, maybe we should try and get that guy. It's mad. That's supposedly how I ended up doing Mindhunter.
Amazing story.
Yeah. He did episode 1 and 2. I did episode 3 and 4. So my job was to try to direct in the style of David Fincher, which is very difficult. But it was a really amazing learning curve. And that's, I think, an important part of a director is directing is about doing what's right for a particular film or a series and not your own ego. And I think that's the main thing that I try to do in my docs as well, is that I don't put myself in the film. You don't hear my voice. You don't see me interviewing people. You don't see me on camera. I'm always outside of it because the story is the story. The character is the character. And your job is to kind of not distract, for me, the audience by being a part of the story.
Thank you very much for this interview. 2073 is at the Millennium Dogs Against Gravity. Thank you very much. Asif Kapadia, Marcin Radomski.
Thank
See
you.
you.
Se va la vida, se va todo.